Streaming. We're going to get, are we streaming?
We're streaming.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. This is September 18th meeting of the Arkansas Highway Commission. I'm Philip Caldo, Vice Chairman of the Commission. I'd like to begin by saying hello to those who might be watching this morning by way of our live stream. This meeting is for the purpose of discussing and approving the proposed 2025 through 2027 biennium appropriations budget. In fact, the budget topic is the only item we will address today. But first, as we often do, I like to entertain a motion to continue usage of electronic signatures for the signing of the minute orders which pertain to this meeting. Do I have a motion to continue this practice?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Now we move to the reason we are here this morning. And for that, I will hand things over to the Director of the Arkansas Department of Transportation, Lori Tudor. Madam Director, the meeting is yours.
Thank you, Vice Chairman, and thank you for joining us today for this virtual meeting. This really helped the staff to do it like this because of the timing of when we need to submit the biennium budget to the Bureau of Legislative Research. So this was, we appreciate your time this morning. This last week and this week, I sent you an update, but early this week, I sent you an update of our proposed 2025 through 2027 biennium budget report. The last one I sent to you had a list of all of the positions at the department and the maximum salaries associated with each position. So I hope you got that and were able to look over it. This biennium budget is like the Vice Chairman said, it's for 2025 through 2027, but it actually covers two state fiscal years, the upcoming two state fiscal years, which start July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026, which is state fiscal year 2026, and then state fiscal year 2027, which begins July 1st, 2026, and ends on June 30th, 2027. So this budget report that you're looking at is for those two state fiscal years. It includes the maximum spending limits for what I like to just call our bank accounts. We have different bank accounts here RDOT operates out of in just layman's terms. The first and the most important one is our primary account, which you'll hear called the RRA Quad Zero. That's an odd name for that account, but that's our main account, and you'll hear Patrick talk about that here in a minute. But that's the big account where we pay our contractors, we pay our employees, all the department expenses, all of our purchasing goes through that account. So that's the big account, and it sets the maximum spending limits on that account. Then we have other accounts like the Connecting Arkansas program. As you know, that was the 2012 half-cent, temporary half-cent, which we had to keep that money separate from our regular state funds because that went to a prescribed set of 31 projects. So all that money was kept separate in its own bank account, and we still have some funding left in that bank account. So it sets maximum spending limits out of that account. And then some other accounts you're probably familiar with, there's like the State Ed County Road Program. That funding goes into its own special account, and it sets those spending limits for that account. That's for that county road program. It's set aside for county roads, and the same thing for another account that we set aside for our city street program. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how our state funds that come in and where they're placed into these different accounts. And then this biennium budget sets maximum spending limits out of those accounts. Another really important account we'll mention is our retirement account. All that funding is kept separate. That's for our Arkansas State Highway Employees Retirement System, or ASHRS. All of our retirement funds are also kept separate away from all the other monies I just explained. So in that budget report, like I said, there's a list of all of our proposed titles for the upcoming 2 fiscal years, 26 and 27, and the maximum salary amount for each of those positions. That maximum salary amount does not mean what that person is making. It just sets a maximum amount. Like the rest of state government, you have a minimum and a maximum for each position, each grade, if you will. And so that is what's happening there. It just sets that maximum. The minimum is established, but the maximum is what you cannot go over without getting a further legislative authority. Also what I sent to you was a salary request summary, which takes that big list of all of those positions and their maximum salaries, and it gave you just an executive summary of some of the positions, names that we changed, some of the positions we added, some of the positions we took away, and it just gave you an idea of overall, without having to compare last year's with this year's, what changed between the 2 years. Overall, we're happy to report that we're asking for 0 additional positions this year. So that's always something that we strive for, to work within the number of positions we already have. Now, what I would like to remind you all is this budget, they call it a budget, it's actually an appropriations. And I know those words are kind of, what's the difference in the two? Well, the biennium budget is our appropriation of our maximum spending limits. But our operating budget, which you approved earlier this year, that gets into the weeds. And we went through that, if you'll remember, of all the divisions in the department, the amount we're going to spend on equipment in the next year. It's really granular. It gets into the weeds. And it is actual what we think are going to be the expenditures for the year. What you're looking at today is just setting maximum limits to allow flexibility through the year, come what may. So with that, let's see, at the end of this meeting, we're going to need a motion after we present and answer your questions. If you decide to approve it today, we'll need a motion to submit this budget to the Bureau of Legislative Research, who will review all the information that you're looking at today, and then they will work with us to get it into whatever needs, maybe some small tweaks or whatever. They'll put it together, and they will in turn send that budget request over to the Joint Budget Committee of the Legislative Council for their consideration. And we have our budget hearing set for October 24th at 9 a.m. Billy Parrish is our representative down at Bureau of Legislative Research. So he'll be working closely with Patrick and Alicia, and he'll get it the way he needs it, because he'll be the one presenting it at the Joint Budget Committee on October 24th. He'll present it, but then we, of course, all of us that need to be, will be at that meeting and be able to be called up to the table to answer any questions that Billy is not able to answer, any details that they need. So that's how that will go down. That's how that will occur on October 24th. So again, I hope that I've made that clear, kind of the difference between the operating budget and what you're looking at today. I'm going to stop right here. If you have any questions before I kick it off over to Alicia to talk about the salaries.
None from me.
Lori?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to tell you, I'm pretty excited about one point here, that you're adding 2 new senior right-of-way project managers and 10 additional positions for the right-of-way pool. Boy, that's something that we really need, and I'm excited to see that on here.
Yes, it is a real need to try to keep up and to be timely in our delivery of the projects.
Thank you.
Okay, with no other questions, I'm going to turn this over to Alicia Hunt, our Division Head of Human Resources. She's going to talk about the salaries that are included in this biennium budget report.
Thank you, Director Tudor. I appreciate being given the opportunity to talk about this morning. First, I'd like to start off talking about the slide that you see in front of you now on the screen. What this represents is a 30-year look back in terms of historically where we've been with appropriated positions related to actual staffing levels. As you can see from the chart, we've decreased the number of appropriated positions by more than 700 over the last 30 years. As you can tell, that number, the appropriated number, as Director Tudor mentioned, is the maximum staffing levels we could possibly have. And it's not directly correlated to the actual number of employees, because you can see that number as is down there shown in the red line below. Most of the decreases that you'll note in the appropriated number of positions over the last several years have been related to our defining and expanding our career paths for employees. Prior to introducing performance-based pay back in 2018, we really had no mechanism in place to increase an employee's pay in exchange for their hard work, except to promote them to an additional position, in which that meant that there was a line item for the employee's position they were in, and then there had to be a line item for the position they would promote to in a higher grade. And that resulted in a lot of unique titles, because if we had 100 maintenance aid ones, we needed 100 maintenance aid twos in order to promote someone. And so that's what resulted in, quite a few of those extra positions. And while we still strongly believe in performance-based pay is good for recognizing and rewarding good performance with an employee's position, the need also exists for employees to have the opportunity to promote along a career path to positions with higher grades and higher pay, as their experience, their skills, and their technical expertise make them able to take on more responsibilities and perform more complex work. And so that's why, these career ladder positions have been so great for us in terms of giving us more flexibility, because we were able to combine these positions into pools instead of having to have unique line items. And so that's enabled us to reduce those overall number of appropriated positions by so much over time. And so before I discuss the summary of our overall request, I'd like to give you a little bit of background, if you don't mind, on the process that we follow to get us to this point where the information is actually presented. And so I'd like to clarify that this, again, we're talking about the appropriation process today, not the operating budget. So the appropriations planning process, it takes place every 2 years, and it gives us the opportunity to look forward to the future and plan for changes in our maximum number of appropriated positions and the salaries associated with those positions for each general legislative session, which, as you know, are held every 2 years. The appropriations process sets that maximum number of employees and the maximum amount on the salaries, and that establishes the parameters that we work within when doing our operating budget. And as Director Tudor mentioned, we do the operating budget annually, just a few months prior to the start of each fiscal year, where we really can get, honed in on what we really expect to have in terms of staffing levels and salaries expenses for the upcoming year. So we begin the appropriation process in the spring of each year. The Human Resources Division and Fiscal Services Division, we establish a timeline. We ask each district engineer and each division head to submit a list of needs to us, along with the justifications for those for new titles, number of positions, any of those kinds of things, upgrades, downgrades. And it gives us a chance to review that information. We gather all the supporting documentation, and then we prepare the request for review by the department's salary committee. Our salary committee is made up of our assistant chiefs, the chief fiscal officer, chief legal counsel, and the division head of human resources. So the salary committee meets, they go over the information, they review it. There's a lot of back and forth conversation that takes place between the salary committee and all the associated divisions and districts that submitted requests. And then once those results have been reviewed by the salary committee, then the results are submitted to the chiefs and then ultimately to the director, for her approval. And then once approved, they're submitted to you all in the commission, and then ultimately submitted to the Bureau of Legislative Research for preparation for the next General Assembly. And so in the packet you received, as Director Tudor mentioned, you have a document that shows a summary of our request for appropriated salaries and positions for state fiscal years 2026 and 2027. And our request keeps our appropriated maximum number of positions level at 4,558, though we are recommending a few changes to some of those line items as shown in that summary table. Some of the most noteworthy changes are the addition of a high-level special projects coordinator and a data governance officer to help facilitate clear and consistent communication and coordination across the department regarding ongoing project and data-related challenges. And as Commissioner Taldo mentioned earlier, the addition of 2 senior right-of-way project managers and 10 additional positions in the right-of-way pool, including but not limited to a broadband utility coordinator and 5 utilities inspection coordinators. And that's to help us meet that increased workload and be more efficient in our operations in right-of-way. We're also requesting the upgrade of 8 positions in the maintenance supervisory pool and 3 positions in the skilled trades pool. And this is to address challenges with recruiting and retention in those highly competitive positions. We're also requesting the upgrade of several statewide maintenance pool positions to recognize the financial strain and the personal sacrifice for these employees who work on these statewide crews because they're in constant travel status, and they're really difficult to recruit and retain people who are literally on the road, 50 out of 52 weeks a year. It's a challenging area. So we believe those are necessary for that purpose. We're also adding several career path positions in our administrative support and our district maintenance pools. These are pools of non-professional, non-technical employees who often have little room for advancement. And so we're trying to ensure that at least every career path, whatever it is, has at least one step available for promotion without moving into different areas. So additionally, you'll note on the maximum salaries request that we're requesting a 10% increase for fiscal year 26, which follows suit with the governor's directive to state agencies earlier this year to increase maximum salary ranges by 10% as part of a plan to address overall recruiting and retention problems. We also recommend an increase in the maximum salaries of 5% for fiscal year 27. Now, there's one exception on that request for maximum salary increases. You'll note that the director's salary for fiscal year 26, we're requesting that it remain flat with no change. So there is no requested 10% increase, but we are requesting a 5% increase in the maximum salary for that position for fiscal year 27. And so if do you all have any questions that you'd like to ask?
I got a quick question. Is the governor's directive to state agencies, are we covered by that?
No, sir, we're not. The commission has the authority to set that maximum.
Okay.
We just but traditionally we fall in with whatever
Sure.
raises the governor determines. Okay. And then of course a 10% increase in your maximum salaries, that's going to be that's a big number. Normally we stay with about 5%, mm-hmm. But we felt like, if the rest of state government is doing that to increase their opportunities to recruit and retain, we would like to do it as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. One other question, the broadband utility coordinator, do we get special funds from the governor or whatever on this, or from the federal government on this broadband project, separate from highway money?
No, this is solely an employee paid for by RDOT. There's no other money being paid there.
Okay, thank you.
If there are no other questions, I'll hand it back to Director Tudor. Thank you all.
Any other questions? For sure, we don't want to move on. Okay. I guess the bottom line is when we were, we always we go through what to present to you all. And I just wanted you to realize the grassroots work that goes into these salaries every 2 years. It's a big job, and the staff spends a lot of time in making sure we meet all of our needs for the upcoming state fiscal years, and that it's truly vetted and understood what they're asking for. I mean, there's some that ask for everything, and of course you can't have everything, but then as you move up the chain, you say, well, this is worthy of it. We wish we could do everything. We can't do everything. And we were able to eliminate, as we were talking through about the positions we're adding, we subtracted out positions in our, what do we call that?
The temporary pool.
We had a temporary pool. We had temporary intern type pool, and we felt like we had room to reduce that pool of positions in order to do what we're doing this time around with the additional positions we discussed. So just to be sure you understand, we've added some really important positions we needed, but we reduced some lesser positions in our intern pool, or what do you call it?
Yeah, in the temporary pool as well. There were a few other reductions as
There was
well.
a few other
in several other
reductions.
pools, where we had a little bit of room that we could cut.
But so I just want to be sure that's clear. Any other questions before we move on to the big spending items?
I just wanted to thank Alicia and Director Tudor and everyone for their work on this. I mean, it's beyond the dollars. I think that the whole country is facing a workforce problem, and they've gotten really creative in changing some of these positions and modernizing the department and trying to get these staffing positions filled. And Lori spoke to this yesterday at HCRAS about how their work she used the term "stop the bleed" on the workforce issues that we've been having since 2020. And this work today reflects the majority of what they've done to help meet that need, which is a huge need. I wanted to ask Alicia, I know that some of our departments have been changing the titles of the jobs to make them more attractive to people for recruitment purposes. When she does that, do we have to take any action, or is that something she's able to do is there anything we need to do to authorize that, or is that something she's able to do within the 2 years on her own?
What we do with that, a lot of times what we call those are functional titles, because we're using like an appropriated position. I'll use an HR for example. We have an appropriated position pool for HR professionals, and one's called an HR specialist. And when we advertise those to the outside, sometimes we tweak the title that's being advertised to better attract people who are looking for like an industry trend. Like, for example, an HR business partner is something, that's a common out there. And we do that to try to increase the applicant pool and draw attention to that, use a little more modern terms instead of trying to change our titles every time to match. And so that's how we do that. We just use functional titles. We're still using the actual appropriated titles, but the functional titles just give us flexibility in how those are presented. And also occasionally when we need to have like a little bit of a specialized job description, we'll use a functional title that better describes the work that's actually being done versus one of the more generic titles that we use in the appropriation.
Great. Thank you. You're doing a great job. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marie. Any other comments before we move on to Patrick's presentation? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick.
Okay, I got the slide for it. Good morning.
Good morning.
What we're going to be talking about is we've got two parts of the appropriation. Alicia did the staffing part, and now we're going to look at the upper limits of spending. What you see in front of you right now is the revenue side, which when you hear the word appropriation, it's maximizing spending, which are expenses. And so sometimes the question is, why are we looking at revenue? Well, we need the revenue to justify our ask in the expense side. So we'll go through some of the revenue, and, when you see the revenue numbers at the bottom and then you look over at the appropriation ask, the appropriation is typically always going to be higher than the revenue coming in because of unexpected revenues. In our case, federal funds, we can turn dollars over multiple times during a year. So we need to have that cushion, and we may have some other monies coming in from the feds that we need to have that cushion to allow us to go ahead and spend it without having to go to the legislature every time. So for our request, the difference between looking at these revenues that you're seeing here and when we do the budget process that we've talked about a couple of times just to delineate is we don't take as detailed or in the weeds approach with the revenues. It's more of a what if approach that provides it, for planning and flexibility. And so it just makes sure we have enough revenue to substantiate the appropriation request. A check and balance with this is on an annual basis. Myself and the director have to fill out what's called a certification of income that comes back, and we have to list out the income to, once again, substantiate the appropriation. If we don't have enough revenue to substantiate our requested appropriation, they can block it. They don't take it away from us, but they can block it until we get more revenue to substantiate the appropriation. So that's another kind of mechanism in there that limits our appropriation if need be. So getting down into the chart above, the Arkansas Highway Transfer Fund on the first line, that $70 million is composed of Act 1 Security Reserve Fund of $20 million and state surplus from Act 1058 that's capped now at $50 million. So that's a static number. And so you see no change there. For federal funds, for state fiscal year 25, we had a $850 million estimate I'll use. We actually received over $900 million. So we're going with a $1 billion ask there. It's a 17.6% increase. And then for 27 going to 1.2, which is another 20% increase. Highway user revenue, you see a huge jump there. What that is the half-cent sales tax that came from 4-lane highway over to RRA Quad Zero, our operating fund, was in between the biennial cycle. So it was a timing issue. So yes, we got the highway user revenue, or are getting it and have gotten it since June or July of 23, but we weren't real sure where it was going to land. So this is catching up to that vote that passed that got the half-cent sales tax moved to the operating fund. So that's that $260 million increase there. Natural gas severance, as y'all have seen, it's declined. I was a little hesitant to move it up 400,000, but I was hopeful that it might grow a little bit. So that's a small increase there. Connecting Arkansas program, all that program now is getting is interest. There is no other revenue source for that program. That's where the half-cent sales tax was going. Now that it's been diverted to the highway user revenue for the regular operating, that CAP program only gets interest. It got roughly $12 million last year. That was with great interest rates. I'm being cautious on interest rates because the balance also is going to be declining since there won't be any other revenue going in it. So both those factors taken into account results in lower interest. Act 416 of 21, that's where we have our motor fuel, our registration, and our casino tax. Just moderate or just very slight increases there. The Asher's Trust Fund, We increased, in 2025, we had it set at 200 million. I think we were close to 150 million in contributions and transfers into the system. So we moved it up to 220 million and then and left it flat after that. Now, remember, we're still talking revenue and not the appropriations yet. The other miscellaneous and interagency transfers, that's just kind of a catch-all of other interest, other transfers in from other funds, other financial grants that we may get. So bottom line here was we're looking at total revenues projected being 24.1% higher than 25. So 25-26 comparison is 24.1% higher. And then the next year is 9.1%. The majority of that being an increase in federal funds and then the half-cent sales tax.
Stop for questions.
Are there any questions on this slide? Okay, I'll move to the next one.
Did we lose Marie?
Is Marie still?
Is Marie gone? Okay.
Okay. So now we'll get into the appropriations side.
Still here. I just
Okay.
have my video turned off. I'm still here.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Marie.
So now we're, the real topic is the appropriations request that the legislature calls budget. That's where it always gets confusing. But what you've got here is the appropriation for 24-25 that we're operating under currently. Then the next column is what is our ask for 26 state fiscal year and state fiscal year 27. So the RRA fund, the State Highway Transportation Fund, we're asking for just a small increase in appropriation there. It's basically salaries and some operating expense, but it was all fairly minor. Between 26 and 27, we just continued that growth a little bit to make sure we had the amounts we needed to be able to expend if we got more funding. Under the CAP program, you can see it's flat. Currently, we have $387 million in the account. So the 435 is going to be more than enough to cover expenditures that we would have in the CAP program because like I said, and you may already know, is no revenue coming into that account. It's just going to be spending down the balance and collecting interest until the projects that are under that program are completed. The state aid program and state aid street program are staying flat. The highway public transit operations program, which talked to them, and the cash balance in that account is above the $6 million. They think they can spend a little more this year. So we increased it by 16.7%, stayed flat after that. The ACCEPT program stays flat. The natural gas bridge repair, that's the 5% that I think you've heard me talk about over the past year or so with natural gas, that's the counties that have active wells. And so as the natural gas severance tax has gone down, the amount that gets distributed to them conversely goes down. So we're reducing that by 28.6 million. I don't think we'll get even close to 5 million. Based on the previous couple of months, it's been under $100,000 each month. It's been distributed out. NOAA, that's a unique one, along with public transportation grants. NOAA is operating expenses for a weather radio tower that's in Star City. That comes from miscellaneous general revenue, along with the public transportation grants. Public transportation grants are used for match with US DOT, and both of those are capped at $4,000 and $350,000 based on the miscellaneous revenues. Getting to Asher's, we've got a $240 million or $240 million appropriation this year, moving it up 10 million to 250 for 4.2% increase, and then increasing it again up 8%. What this expense appropriation represents is about 10% of the program. So if there was the funds are held by custodial banks. So if there was it's not our money. If there was a run on the system, this would allow up to 10% of the run on the system. You never know, and hope it never happens. But that's a very small portion of the total system. Intermodal facility grants of $525,000. That's all they get during a year, and it all gets distributed during the year. That's the first $525,000 out of 1.025 interest, which is off of our interest in RRA. So there's a off the top before our main program gets any interest. It funds this intermodal facility grant program and the future transportation grant workforce development program. And so you get $525,000 in the first one, and then the next one gets $500,000 each year. And so the reason you see the dip and then the rise back is right now we've only got, I think, about $600,000 in the future transportation grant and workforce development. And so if we add another $500,000, that gives up to $1 million, a little over $1 million. So we could actually grant out $1 million. And if we did that, then, or if we did not do that, if we held on to those funds to make a bigger impact potentially, then we'll get another $500,000. So that's why it goes down and back up. So overall, when you look at our appropriation request, it's under 2% for each year increase. Is there any questions on this slide? If not, I'll move on to the next one. And this just basically boils down what I just talked about a little, just so you can see it in a real small snapshot. So for the state fiscal year 26, we're asking for 3 increases of appropriation and 2 decreases in appropriation for a net 1.8% increase. For the state fiscal year 27, we're asking for 3 increases, continued increases in appropriations, and then 2 that'll stay flat from the previous increase for a 1.7% increase over state fiscal year 26's appropriation. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any questions on that one? All right. I'm going to give you, the director hit on a lot of it earlier, but I was kind of tied up and let you, because it comes to this committee that's on the slide right now. But kind of giving you a quick rundown of the process. Alicia gave you the starting of it. We work simultaneously and together on the human resource side and the fiscal side. There's a deeper dive in the human resource side than with other departments than there is with the fiscal side. But we start this right on the heels of the end of the fiscal year, and then end up with it coming to you all in this packet to be approved in September, since it's due to legislative research in October. And the goal is to have these books for this time, books bound and submitted to BLR by the first week of October, to give them plenty of time to start the dialogue between me and Billy Parrish and Alicia and Tony Robinson and Spencer Worth with the personnel side, so that we can be on the same page when we get into the room and we're starting to ask questions. And, Billy's main goal is to try to ward off any questions before they get to us. And the same thing with Tony and Spencer. So once we get the books bound, I deliver them over to Arkansas Legislative Council. Then they BLR, excuse me, and they distribute them to all the members. They start getting questions, and then we'll have our hearing in October 24 of 24 at 9:00. And that's when it'll be, and then after that, once it's approved during the budget hearings, then it'll go to the 25 session as a bill and ultimately passed as our appropriation act for 26. And then the next year will be for 27. And with that, I'll hand it back over to the director.
And, you know, another nuance to the way the process works at the fiscal session. So in 2025, they'll approve the biennium, but they're only really going to approve state fiscal year 2026. And then in the fiscal session in the even year, which will be 2026, they'll approve what we submitted this time for 2027. If you'll remember, you can go down there and ask for changes to your appropriations legislation, but we'd never have done that. We do it all right now, submit it, they approve it, and then we get 2026 and then we'll get 2027, and we'll be 2 years, if that makes any sense. But and that we just thought it'd be interesting for y'all to see who's on the Joint Budget Committee, just to get an idea. It's a big committee. And, you know, normally in the past, one thing that we've had asked before to reduce an appropriation, in particular, they wanted to reduce the amount for Asher's for our retirement amount. And we were able to accommodate that, you know, whatever they might ask for something at the committee meeting, and we'll do what we can and work with them the best we can. I think Representative Kavanaugh asked for a little more detail. Was that last year?
To the last biennium.
But last biennium, she wanted it a little more granular. So we provided that for them, and we're continuing to do that.
Okay.
So anyway, just to give you kind of an idea of what we've experienced since I became director anyway.
Lori,
Yes.
just to confirm, that meeting will be on the 24th of October. Is that right?
That's correct. That's correct. I think it's at 9:00.
At 9:00.
9:00.
Okay.
They have
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
they have the military department, and on the agenda, military department's ahead of us, and then it's us, and we're the only two being considered that day as of right now.
Who from the department will be there?
Well, I'll be there. I'll be there at the table with Billy. Is Tony at the table usually? Okay, so with Billy Parrish, it'll be me, this is what we've done in the past. It'll be me as the director, Patrick as CFO, and then Crystal Woods will be there to answer any salary questions specific to the salary part of our request. So hopefully, and then we'll have, of course, others in the audience in case there's something we can't answer. But we'll be ready to answer any questions we can.
Thank you.
I have a question. What is the, Patrick, you see some of the questions before it ever advances, but what is typically a red flag to a legislative council member? What do they ask about normally, just out of curiosity?
In the past, it's been, if you've got an over 10% increase, that's a red flag on appropriation. Representative Wooten will ask a question, I'm very confident, about how do we pay our state match on our insurance? Do we pay it on budgeted positions? And that gets kind of hairy too, because they use budgeted and appropriated interchangeably. So we have to figure out what the question is. But generally, his question has been, are you paying insurance match on appropriated positions? So if you go back to the slide that Alicia had, I'll give you a quick example. So there's some agencies out there that are paying insurance match on 4,558 people. They're appropriated people. So they're paying for about 54 people that are not employed. And so Representative Wooten has been trying to, challenge that and go, why are you doing that? We look at it from a standpoint of at one point in time, usually in the first part of the year, we'll get a staff count, and then we will set our insurance match at that rate. So right now it's a little over, or it's around $37.50 that we're paying on. So as you can see with this static number right here, there's going to be times that we'll pay over and there'll be times we'll pay under. But overall, I've looked at it since I've been here 7 years, and overall we're pretty much in the $37.50 range. So we're not taking advantage of the system, and the system's not hurting us. So those are the big questions that they ask that go across pretty much all agencies. There's times we're up there to talk about appropriation. They'll start asking about, hey, what about this project over here? It's not always on point questions.
We'll be ready for
Right.
that too.
Yep.
We'll have everybody in the room to whatever question comes up. If we can't answer it though, we'll just ask if we can come back, answer it.
I anticipate more questions this time on the revenue piece
Okay.
after yesterday.
Okay.
So, any other questions and any other discussion before I hand it back to Vice Chairman Taldo to? Not yet.
Sorry.
After y'all handle this piece of business, I've asked Michelle, our Chief Legal Counsel, Michelle Davenport, to give you a brief update on something that happened at the claims subcommittee. Not yesterday, but the day before, just so everybody is up to speed on what happened there. So we'll finish this piece of business, and just for information, she's going to give you an update.
Okay.
So Vice Chairman Taldo, I'm going to kick it back to you to request a motion.
Thank you, Director Tudor. I appreciate you and your staff's hard work on putting this all together, and really good explanation of the whole thing, since we don't do this every day. Now, I will ask for a motion to approve the budget. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It's approved.
Oh, thank you very much. We will keep you informed along the way. Hopefully it'll be smooth sailing from here, and but we'll keep y'all informed as we move through the process. If there's any major changes after we submit it to BLR, we'll be sure to come back and let you know, but we don't expect any. And now, if you have,
Lori,
yes, sir.
let me add my word of thanks to you guys, to the staff. All of you worked so hard on this. It's really a good job this morning. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, I have to tell you, the staff works very, very hard and takes it very seriously, and just want to always be transparent, but have what we need to continue moving forward with the department. So appreciate the staff as well, everybody here. So anyway, okay, well, thank you for that. And now I'm going to ask Michelle, can you all see her down the road, or do I need to put her in my hot seat here? I think I'll put her here in my hot seat. But I just want her to get y'all, since I got you all together, get y'all up to speed on something.
Good morning, commissioners.
Morning.
I wanted to bring up a matter. Typically, the Arkansas Claims Commission has a process where claims that are brought against the department are heard before the commission, and then those rulings are then taken to the ALC subcommittee called the Claims Review Committee. And typically, this committee operates very much as simply a, do we approve the action of the commission that they have taken? Or do we believe that additional information may be needed or adjustments made to any of the decisions of the Claims Commission during that time? Monday's meeting was a little bit unique for the department in that the claimant in that matter appealed the decision after a denial by the Claims Commission. The Claims Commission denied and I'll give you the facts about the situation. It was a job that we had in 2006 in Madison County. We were constructing a road. During the normal course of operations of the department, our contractor made a contract with an adjoining landowner to take some of the debris or rubble from the construction process and deposit it on that adjacent landowner. That's very common in our contracts. The department has three things that we look for when we do what's called a restraining conditions approval for offsite locations. And I'm getting a little technical because this became important later on Monday. Those restraining conditions are actually limited. We only are looking at, does it comply with our stormwater and environmental concerns? Does it comply with any cultural resources? Make sure there's no cultural resources on the area, and then also to make sure there's no hazardous waste or chemicals of that nature. That's standard language in our standard specifications. We operate that way generally. So we do not do a full inspection or engineering analysis of any offsite location that our contractor is using for either, depositing material or removing material for borrow. So that's kind of our general process. So in 2006, we went through our standard process. The road was completed. It was accepted. In 2015, this area in Madison County actually experienced a landslide. So the adjoining property owner, which actually I don't have their name at the time, there was the property right next to the highway where we added the borrow. The next property owner over were the family called the Pelfreys. And during that time, there was a landslide, and the material that was adjacent to our right-of-way moved. Some of it was ours, some of it was just the natural ground, created a landslide, and it damaged the Pelfreys' home. That was in 2015. In I believe right after that, they filed suit against the contractor we had employed. It went through civil litigation. They resolved that suit in 2021 with the contractor by entering into a negotiated settlement. We found out on Monday that settlement amount was for $225,000. Subsequent to the initial landslide, this family also reconstructed a second home on the property, which was then also damaged because the area was continuing to move and slide. So they brought a claim against the department in 2021. After they had settled with the contractor, the department, following its normal process, looks first, are there any procedural reasons that we should object to this being brought against the department? And we file something called a motion to dismiss. We follow the general rules of civil procedure, just as if you were in court. The rules of the Claims Commission by statute say the Claims Commission is there to hear any suits that the only reason that they cannot receive an award is because it's against the state. So in other words, if the matter could be dismissed in circuit court and they would not be eligible to receive compensation in circuit court, they should not be eligible to receive compensation in the Claims Commission. So following our general processes, the department filed that motion to dismiss on a breach of the statute of limitations. On this type of negligence action that was alleged, that's a 3-year statute of limitations that actually began to run in 2006. So we are many years past when that statute would have run. There's some ancillary issues concerning a continuing trespass, things of that nature that were never actually briefed before the Claims Commission because the Claims Commission ruled in favor of the department after several hearings that yes, the department was correct. It violated the statute of limitations. And so therefore should be dismissed, and they had other remedies against the contractor. In the normal review process, it was appealed to the legislature. They hired a new attorney to represent them at the table. Attorney Bob Ballinger was the representative of the landowners. At that time, we found out on Friday they would be making a presentation before the committee. That's out of the norm, but the committee has the authority to allow that. So during the committee hearing, they asked the department quite a few questions, especially regarding the facts of the case, of which technically the Claims Commission had never heard either because it was dismissed on the procedural grounds. At the conclusion of the questions of the department, the Claims Commission's director, Catherine Irby, also made the statement that the facts were not in dispute at that time because it was simply the procedural matters. They then received the presentation of the landowners. And after quite a bit of testimony at that time, the department was not allowed an opportunity to come back and provide any rebuttal information at that point. However, the committee denied a motion to remand the matter back to the Claims Commission for further investigation. And the subcommittee actually recommended a payment to the landowners in the amount of $343,000. At that point, the vote was affirmed by the committee. And at this point, procedurally, that vote then goes to the full body of ALC for their approval. So I wanted to just give you an opportunity to know that this was outside of the norm. Typically, these matters are handled as a approval or denial of the Claims Commission ruling. And then typically, if there's a denial of the Claims Commission ruling, often it's sent back and remanded back to the Claims Commission to be reheard a second time, or in some cases, monetary amounts may be adjusted, but I've only seen that when a monetary amount was already awarded. So because it was out of the norm, I just wanted to take this opportunity, and I thank the director very much for, since you were all together, for giving me this moment to just let you know that that action occurred, and we are still awaiting the final outcome of that matter at ALC on Friday. And we will be present on Friday if there are any other questions before the committee, questions about either the ruling, the procedural nature, and I'm working with our staff to go back to 2006 and get some of the factual information about those original contracts as well. And I'll have that available for them at the committee meeting. Does anyone have any questions, or if there's any parts? I know that was a little bit long-winded, but the facts on that one were a little bit important to understand where we were coming from.
So what is our recourse at this point?
At this time, there is limited recourse other than we can make the appeal to the full body of ALC at that time and say that we disagree with the action of the subcommittee. Oftentimes, it's their prerogative on how they want to review those decisions. And so we simply, in these matters, the decision maker really is at the Claims Commission standard for the department when we're presenting evidence. So at these proceedings, we typically are there to provide any additional input or information, but it was not a matter that we appealed to the committee. So we're a little bit at the discretion of how ALC would like to handle that matter.
Thank you.
All right. If you have any questions moving forward, please feel free to reach out to me. And we will definitely keep you posted on the outcome on how that matter is handled on Friday. And I will turn it back over to the director.
Thank you.
So that, just to be clear, that ruling was against RDOT, and they're asking us to pay the what,
$343,000.
$343,000. So just wanted you to be aware of that, because that's something that's completely different than what we've experienced in the past.
Lori,
So with that,
yes,
go ahead.
Let me make sure I understand. I guess I didn't understand, probably should have, that the legislature could overrule the Claims Commission.
Yes, they can.
Yes, sir. The Claims Commission is a body of the legislature, and their review process, instead of going to a Supreme Court or Court of Appeals, the Claims Commission decisions can be appealed directly to the Claims Review Subcommittee of ALC. they make a determination, and then the final decision goes to ALC, the full committee.
So the full the subcommittee turned the appeal down, denied the appeal, but the full committee also denied it, or denied remand, but agreed to pay a claim, came up with a number and paid a claim.
It actually, the Claims Commission is the one that denied the claim in full. The subcommittee then actually said, no, we're going to assign a value of $343,000 and award that. And now it's appealing to the final ALC full committee.
Okay.
They have not met on that yet.
Okay, I got it. Now, if the full committee agrees with the subcommittee and awards the claim, is there an appeal to that, to the Supreme Court of Appeals?
No, sir, there is not.
No appeal. Okay.
No appeal, sir.
Wow. That's an interesting balance of power there.
Do y'all remember State Senator Bob Ballinger?
Oh, yeah.
Michelle, can you speak to the statute of limitations? Is this unusual?
Yes, it is. Typically on negligence claims, there is a statute of limitations of 3 years from the act that they are saying is negligent. In this case, the negligent act they're complaining of is placing the rock on the adjoining landowner. That would typically have a 3-year statute of limitations. The slide did not occur until 2015. The Arkansas Supreme Court has rejected the argument in Arkansas as a whole for all types of negligence discovery that you don't begin the statute of limitations until the act is known. And even if we started to apply that, even if the Supreme Court reversed their standing on that, you would have had a statute of limitations beginning in 2015 when the action occurred. Well, that would have concluded in 2018. This claim was not brought until 2021. And so we've kind of moved past 2 different statute of limitations. Any statute of limitations for the department on a contract claim, I believe, are 5 years. So there is no recourse back to the contractor in this matter for us as well at that time.
Well, it sounds like you're ready for Friday. Keep us posted. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Question.
Yes, sir.
This is David Hay. Doesn't the decision of the full committee, that is still ultimately later voted on by the full House, is it not?
I believe there is an amount that is determined on how the award is appropriated. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, I mean, ultimately, it could go to the vote of the full House. That could be either yes or no.
Yes, sir. I'll be very honest. I have not seen one progress in that manner. But yes, sir, I believe technically that's correct, that they could deny the appropriation for that amount.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, I appreciate y'all. And anything else before we adjourn? I'm going
No,
to give it back
thank
to Vice Chairman Taldo. You did a great job running this meeting. I'll give it back to you to.
Okay, have we already adjourned? I lost track here.
No, we have not.
Okay. So do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting today?
Absolutely.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.